It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast with Ryan and Jacob. One of your co-hosts, my name is Ryan Kim, and I thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, well, you may have heard of this little movie called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It barely scraped by with a $158 million take this past weekend. So Jacob and I are going to do a deep dive, spoilers and all, with a spoiler-free section, of course. We're also going to wrap up our Moon Knight coverage, continue our Daredevil coverage, and touch briefly on the Avatar Way of the Water trailer. A lot of stuff to unpack, and on top of all of that, on Saturday I turned 25 years old. So Jacob, what say you?
Wow. Well, first off, happy belated birthday to Ryan Cam. That's awesome. 25. That's an amazing milestone. I'm currently 26. When I turn 25, it's a great little reflection of, where you've come before and I guess preparing for what you're going to do in the future. It's a very exciting time, and I'm excited that you're reaching this milestone, and I'm happy for you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I share a birthday with the wrestler Big Van Vader and with a certain Hollywood director you may have heard of. His name is George Lucas. He did a few things here and there.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I never realized that until like a couple of years back. I was looking up George Lucas for some reason, and I saw his birthday, May 14th. I'm like, wow. I'm in some pretty exclusive company. I know I'm sure there were a lot of people born on that day, but it just, I don't know, it just brings a smile to my face knowing that the director of Star Wars and I share a birthday. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we've got a very, very busy show, a lot to unpack. So let's dive into wrapping up our Moon Knight coverage. And oh boy, this show took a bit of a steep dip in quality, didn't it?
Yeah. I had a feeling. I was a little nervous about seeing the final episode of Moon Knight because episode 5 was fantastic. I was like, how are you going to wrap this up in one episode? And then come to find out, it missed the mark on quite a few things. There should have been at least like 2 or 3 more episodes left because you had so much stuff to cram into one single episode. You had like Mark and Steven coming out of the underworld. You have Hammond resurrecting Ahmed and like doing all the Ahmed doing all her stuff, getting all the souls that are not worthy and all that. And there's like the big boss fight with Ahmed and Khonshu, and Layla ends up being a superhero because she possesses one of the avatars. There's just so much that they crammed into this one episode. And it was the shortest episode. I think it was only like 40 minutes long. I think the other ones were about 50. That is a short window to cram so many plot lines in one episode. And so the whole time I was very underwhelmed. There's good aspects to some of it. Some of the action shots were cool to watch. Oscar Isaac still delivered. Ethan Hawke still delivered. But I just didn't care for the final outcome. It just did not have the same quality that the rest of the series was building up to. There was stuff in this episode that just didn't come off as fully earned to me. Like Layla becoming one of the avatars, there was no build up to that at all. Like when that happened, it came completely out of nowhere. I have nothing against the character becoming a superhero if there was the right build up to it, but the way it was executed made absolutely no sense to me. And it was like one of the biggest question marks of the entire series for sure. And I also had issues with the way it wrapped up because it ended on such an abrupt note that I just felt like the show was a waste of time at the end of the day. Like it just ends where you're meant to believe everything's okay when it just ends. It just ends right after the final defeat. And I'm like, that's not a good way to end it. You got to at least have something to entice you. The post-credit scene was interesting when we actually meet the third personality, that was actually pretty cool. And I'm hoping we get a season 2 to see more of that. But I don't know. This could have been easily the best MCU Disney Plus show. The ingredients were there, especially with its character building and the mythology. But condensing everything into one episode really hurt this show, in my opinion. And while I still enjoyed the show overall, because the finale underwhelmed me so much, of all the Disney Plus Marvel shows, it's my least favorite out of all of them. I would actually rather see Loki, What If, and even WandaVision, which I had issues with because of a certain movie that we'll be talking about real soon. It actually improved several aspects of WandaVision for me. That's all I'll say there. Moon Knight, unless we get a season 2, it's one of the more disappointing shows in the MCU.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. Not in the sense that I distrust your opinion, far from it. I regret to agree with you because the last episode, like episode 5, the one before this, so good. Both of us were just raving about how good this was, and I said jokingly, "Oh well, the finale can only go downhill from there." I didn't mean it. I was kind of joking, but it turns out that's exactly what happened. And you know, the whole Layla and the whole becoming the Avatar, or an Avatar in that whole regard, I would have like I was totally on board with that, but she's not really given all that much to do throughout the whole show. Like we pretty much meet her as Mark Spector's kind of sort of wife, but she wants to get away from him for I guess reasons because he's dangerous, which I mean I guess so, that's right, but she was like, "You told me to stay away." It was just it was a minestrone soup of just ideas in that finale. There was a little bit of this, a little bit of that, put some cream in there, put some salt and pepper in there, and they tried to make it all work. But I just don't think they did. At the end of the series, I was just sitting there like, why did they hire Ethan Hawke? The dude is a very talented actor. He almost feels underutilized here. He pretty much is, with the exception of the asylum stuff, which I thought was really good. You could have literally replaced like him as like Harrow and like most actors who play primarily villains, like Mark Strong is one name that is springing to mind. And I don't think it would have made any bit of difference. I mean, this is no offense to Ethan Hawke. Like I said, he's a very good actor. But why'd you hire him if you were just going to make him just, you know, this Harrow dude? I mean, we don't even learn why he wears glass in his shoes. It's like that's the first scene of the series, and it is never explained. It makes no sense. Like, am I alone in this?
Um, there's still a mystery to the character, which I hope. Well, I was gonna say I hope we explored in season 2, but it just occurred to me that he got killed off at the end in the post-credit scene, so we probably won't see him in season 2, and it'll still remain
Yeah,
a
exactly.
mystery, and that is pretty frustrating. I do agree with that, but I still enjoyed his performance. I liked, I guess, the intrigue of the character at the end of the day. That the bit of context that we did get, I assume that he was Khonshu's original avatar, or at least the previous one before Mark came along. But there was like some clashes and disagreements, and he lost that power, and this was like his big revenge scheme. I totally understood, I guess, the setup of his character, but I do get where you're coming from. They probably should have done a little more with him because, like you said, the opening was really cool when he put the glass in his shoes. You're like, why is he doing that? That's just weird and kind of creepy to watch, but well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. The I will say though, my favorite part of the episode was that ending where you see Harrow in the asylum himself and he's being wheeled out, and then it turns out it was Khonshu, and then Jake, and then the third personality, and he's driving the limo, and he turns around and kind of gives him the Undertaker to Teddy Long. Where to, Harrow? And then bang, bang, bang. It's like, well, we're never going to be seeing him again unless unless like he dodged the bullets somehow, which I highly doubt. But it just, like I said, why even bring Ethan Hawke in to begin with? Like, just hire somebody else. I just, like I said, just a huge disappointment in my opinion.
Yeah, the episode definitely left a lot to be desired. But like I said, I am intrigued if we get a season two. The way it ended, I'm pretty sure we're getting a season two, even though they haven't really confirmed if this is getting a second season or not. I know Loki's getting a season two, and What If's getting a season two, and some of the other shows were meant to be just one time, one and done limited series like WandaVision and Hawkeye. But there's so much I guess you can do with this character that I'm intrigued about. I'm hoping, they can redeem themselves after how lackluster the finale was. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm just taking a glance at the Disney Plus calendar. It's looking like we're getting looks like we're getting the Ironheart series, we're getting Marvel Zombies, we're getting Secret Invasion, which, considering the track record of how these shows have been going, in my personal taste, I am worried as heck for Secret Invasion, because I personally hope, and we'll dig into this into Doctor Strange in the spoiler section, but I hope that they go in the direction of leaning more towards the Secret Invasion, because I remember watching that in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and I was so in love with that whole storyline. So I hope they do bring it, but it's going to be interesting to see if they do end up going that or possibly somewhere else. But what did you all think of the final episode of Moon Knight? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you would have to say on there. Well, let's talk about an episode of Marvel television that is significantly better than Moon Knight episode 6, I imagine. Daredevil season 1, episode 8, I got it right this time, called Shadows in the Glass. And I forgot how good an episode this was. I'm rewatching season 1 for the first time in a very long time. I love this show, but it was one of those things where it was like I didn't watch it for a long time, and then I went to revisit it for this show, and I was immediately brought back to, wow, like they literally knocked this out of the ballpark, caught the ball, pitched it to themselves, and knocked it out of the ballpark again. And Shadows in the Glass is one of those episodes that I feel like is forgotten in the grand scheme of things of this show. And I think it's one of the best episodes. It humanizes Fisk without making him completely sympathetic. I mean, we still is like, yeah, this dude is clearly the villain of the story, but he thinks like he's doing it for the right reasons. He literally believes he is the hero of his own story. However, we do get the sense of, yeah, this guy has gone through a lot of stuff. Wilson Fisk's dad is horrible, but we'll cross that bridge in a second. A lot of good Daredevil stuff. Just, there's a lot to unpack with this episode. So, Jacob, what did you think about it?
Yeah, this was an amazing episode. It's probably top three episodes of the series I've seen so far. The main reason why I love it is how it explores Fisk as a character. This is a Fisk centric episode. I think Daredevil's probably only in about 2 or 3 scenes in this entire episode. The Daredevil scenes we got are pretty good, but I like that this is more of a Fisk driven story where we learn about his really sad past with his abusive father. He's in such a bad home and a bad environment, and he's treated really bad. That was a very sad thing to see unfold. It was both satisfying and disturbing at the same time when you see young Wilson Fisk actually kill his dad after beating his mom with that hammer of all things, and he continually smacks his brains with the hammer even after killing him. I'm like, oh man, this is foreshadowing of the door scene. I kind of love it, and it's crazy he went that far at such a young age. But I definitely see it when your dad is such a total jerk and a character you easily hate. Uh, I think the whole direction of the episode is brilliant too. Like I love the opening where it's Fisk waking up from his nightmares and he's going through the same daily routine. He's fixing his eggs. He's getting a suit. He's looking at the empty void that's on his bedroom wall, and he looks in the mirror in the opening and he sees himself as a kid, and it reminds him himself of his really bad past, and his, I guess, devotion to try to get away from that and not be like his dad, even though I feel like he is like his dad in a lot of ways. I like how it explores his character, how he feels like he is the hero of the story when clearly he's not. And I like the devotion of the episode and exploring this character and seeing where he's coming from. I feel like Marvel's best villains are the ones that we know that these characters do horrible things, but it's interesting looking into their motivations, why they believe they are in the right. And I think characters like Fisk and Thanos, Killmonger from Black Panther, and even the Vulture and Spider-Man Homecoming are some of the better villains in the MCU because they do a great job of exploring these characters to where you can identify with these characters while still seeing that, yeah, they are in the wrong for many reasons. And I'm excited to see, like, in all these Daredevil episodes, I'm excited to see where each episode goes next. This ends on a great cliffhanger where, because he has Vanessa who's leading him on, Kingpin is encouraged to go out in the open. He's actually in the media. He's kind of manipulating the public and the media that he is the good guy and that Daredevil is the enemy. I'm intrigued where that's going to go, that people see him, I guess, as the next Tony Stark in this area, this universe. And I'm excited to see, I guess, how they're going to put a stop to this. Daredevil or Matt and Foggy, Karen, Ben. I'm excited to see what these characters are going to do to try to say, hey, this guy is up to something. I'm curious what they're going to do. And it always frustrates me when an episode ends because I can't wait to see the next one. It's so good.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to give a shout out to Dominic Lombardozzi. I hope I'm saying that right, who plays Fisk's dad, because I mean, he did a really good job in this role. I hated this man, and like I get that that was the intent, and he literally like knocked it out of the ballpark on that one. Easily the most disturbing part of the episode is, like you said, when Wilson like hits his dad in the back of the head with the hammer and then keeps hammering him away, and he's like, keep kicking him, keep kicking him, keep kicking him. And I'm like, oh kid, look, I get it, your dad was a jerk, but you need to understand what you're doing right now. And his mom is like, Wilson, stop. And then when she says, get the saw, I'm like, Mama, what are you doing? Excuse me. Excuse me. And I was just sitting there like, wow, Mom, you're really sick of this man too, huh? So much you're literally gonna just like pull a Hannibal Lecter in this piece. But I mean, you kind of understand it's a monstrous thing, but it got to the point where it was like it was either them or it was him. And it wasn't gonna be them, that is for sure. And there's these great little character moments. Like Vincent D'Onofrio is just the perfect Kingpin. They couldn't have picked a better person to play this guy. Like there's a great scene where Gao, the Japanese lady selling the doing the drugs, and Fisk, and they're talking in Japanese and Mandarin, and like and she's like put your house back in order, like get your crap together, and just like Fisk turns the table over, and I'm like, must be a heavy table. And he's just like this primal scream. And Wesley, who's just been like his like right hand man, he's like yells at him, "Get out!" And I'm like, yeah, Wesley, you need to take a personal day. Like Fisk is clearly like he's not in a good state. But I was just like, that's the Vincent D'Onofrio I know. That's Private Joker from Full Metal Jacket. Like he was dipping into not Private Joker, Gomer Pyle. My bad. That's definitely Gomer Pyle right there.
Yeah, I love his performance in all these episodes, and having not seen all of Daredevil, I can easily rank him as one of the best Marvel related villains in anything. He is excellent in this series.
Yeah, and also shout out to Ayelet Zurer, I hope I said that right, who plays Vanessa. She's actually Laura Lorvan, Superman's mom in Man of Steel.
Oh,
So she's a
no
veteran.
wonder she looks familiar.
She's a veteran of both DC and Marvel. And of course, I mean, this is a very Fisk heavy episode, but you also have Daredevil doing his thing, the whole like Blake and Hoffman thing, and that thing going on. You got Ben and Foggy and Karen trying to work their way through Union Allied, and now things are even more complicated because Wilson Fisk has gone from "we don't say his name" to "hey everyone, I'm Wilson Fisk and I'm going to clean up things around here." So their job just got 1,000 times harder.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, and a small part of the episode that I think goes unnoticed is Bob Gunton as Leland Owlsley. I just love how he's like, oh, everything is just running normally. Like, I love your sarcasm, dude, but also at the same time, you really are not helping your cause right now. But I mean, at the same time, he is the money guy, so I mean, he's like, I guess he's justified at being that scared. But I don't know. I like that dynamic. Bob Gunton is such an underrated actor. Shawshank Redemption, Demolition Man, this he's just great.
Yeah, it's a great series, and I'm enjoying seeing all these characters, whether the minor characters or the major characters. You have definitely opened the door, Ryan, to getting me hooked in these Netflix shows, and I'm excited to dive into some of the other shows, which I think before recording this podcast, I was talking with somebody on Twitter, and I had expressed that I was watching Daredevil for the first time. And he's like, yeah, you need to check out all the other shows too. He prefaced that some of the shows aren't as good, but they do fit together at the end, and I'm excited to check some of these other shows out. I've heard Jessica Jones especially is pretty good. I'm excited to see that one too.
I only watched a few episodes of Jessica Jones. What I did see, I did like, but I just never finished it. So this is a good excuse for me to catch up on all of them. I saw all of Luke Cage season one, and I've seen bits and pieces here and there. Daredevil is the one that I'm the most familiar with, so that's why I went with that first. But we'll get across the bridges of all those shows when we do get there. But we just have 5 episodes left in season one, and things are just going to get crazier from here, and I'm so looking forward to traveling down the road with you. But I throw it all to you. What did you all think of this episode if you have seen it? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about it. So now, before we dig into the Doctor Strange stuff, I wanted to touch briefly on a certain trailer that came out attached to Doctor Strange but got released everywhere else a little earlier on this day, being Monday. Avatar: The Way of the Water. After years of speculation, this movie has finally gotten a trailer of some kind. And I'm not gonna lie, I loved this trailer. Like I've been humming that song kind of like all day, just in the back of my head. Like I can't even hum it, but it's weirdly peaceful. I can't put my finger on why, but it just is. I have no idea what this movie is about yet, and I don't think anyone else does either. But wow, this movie is jaw-droppingly beautiful, and this trailer is only like a couple minutes long. So if this movie is as half as good as it looks, then I think James Cameron like has a gold mine on his hands. But no, Jacob, what did you think?
So I actually did not see the trailer when Doctor Strange came out. I saw it in a local theater, so they didn't get the Avatar trailer. I saw the trailer for the first time when it dropped online. So I've only seen the trailer once. And considering I'm not the biggest fan of Avatar, I love the visuals, but the story is kind of in my opinion. This movie looks amazing, especially on a technical level. I knew James Cameron, considering the many years it took between the two Avatar movies, which I think is like 13 years, if I'm not mistaken. I knew the visuals were going to be a step up. I knew he was going to, try to create more revolutionary breakthroughs with the visual world of Pandora. And I'm assuming this movie is going to focus more on the water of Pandora, because there's plenty of sequences where characters are swimming and playing on the beach and other essential aspects of why water is a important facet of, I guess, any solar system and planet and stuff. But I'm so excited to see this movie just on the visuals alone. I'm hoping with the extended gap in movies, the story will be more interesting. The first movie had pretty much your basic story that's been done half to death, that I think have been done in better movies like Dancing with Wolves and The Last Samurai. But Cameron has a great track record with sequels. I mean, look no further than Terminator 2 and Aliens. So don't overestimate James Cameron. He's made some of the biggest blockbusters ever, and I'm sure this is going to be another good one to watch as well, especially in the biggest screen possible. I am beyond excited to see Avatar: The Way of Water, especially for the visuals alone. I think on a visual level, this is going to be one of the best of the year.
Yeah, one of my favorite shots in this trailer is when Sully is like riding side by side on that whale, and the camera starts like upside down, and then you slowly pan up as he's like on the wave line, and you're just like, wow, like it like you can't like it's almost you can't think of it as like you think to yourself, this is clearly real. Like you have to kick yourself. Oh yeah, this is CGI. The CGI is so good that it makes you forget that it's CGI. Like the uncanny valley is either non-existent or clearly it's just I don't know if the reversal of that, but the CGI is really good. That is my point. And
Yeah, and I think even before I saw this trailer, I had read that James Cameron, part of the reason why the film was delayed so many times was because a good emphasis on the film is characters swimming underwater. And the couple of shots I've seen of these characters swimming underwater, and if the movie looks as good as what I'm seeing in the trailer, and apparently how technically complex it is to shoot actors swimming underwater for long periods of time in motion capture suits, I think the hard work is going to pay off. I can see it in this teaser trailer. I can't even imagine what the real full trailer for this is going to be like when there's seeds of the story planted in. There's so much excitement in the build up to December when this is coming out, and James Cameron should be commended, I think, for taking his time and crafting the franchise he wants to tell with these multiple stories. A part of me was skeptical for the longest time. Like, why is he spending so much time in Pandora when he should be making other movies in the meantime? But again, we shouldn't overestimate James Cameron. I think he's got something special on his hands, and I'm excited to see what he's going to bring in the next few years.
yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, keep in mind that James Cameron, he has made two, not one, but two of the highest grossing movies of all time, Titanic and the first Avatar. Say what you will about like his directing style is too simple and all of that. This dude's created some of the finest, like one of the finest action movies ever made in T2, one of the best sci-fi movies ever made in Aliens, and one of the best disaster movies ever made in Titanic. This dude is not a hack. He clearly knows what he is doing. And clearly he's made enough money to the point where he's like, yeah, I can take my time and do exactly what I need to do. So I'm looking forward to this movie for a lot of reasons, and it's especially fun because when the first Avatar came out, it was literally the first movie that was playing at my local theater, which opened the same day that Avatar did. It was December 18th, 2009, which is the same day that my local theater opened. And it's minus pandemic closures, it is still open to this very day. I've worked there. I've cleaned all the floors in there. True story. Cleaned the kitchen in there, cleaned bodily fluids in that theater, but that's another story for a whole nother show. So seeing Avatar 2 in the theater where I saw Avatar 1 for the first time is going to be a very nice little full circle type effect. But if you all saw Avatar 2, the teaser trailer, what did you all think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say about that. Well, Jacob, let's dive into the main event for the evening. Let's talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, I should get this out of the way and saying that there will be a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled section. We're going to get plenty of warnings saying when the spoilers are going to begin. If you have not seen this movie, first of all, go see it. And second of all, see it as blind as possible. The trailers made it really hard because it actually gave away a little bit more than I think I would have liked, but go into it as blind as possible. So then come back and listen to the spoilers. But we'll give plenty of warnings, say, hey, spoilers are coming, abandon ship if you don't want to know. I have a full review, non-spoiler, of this movie on my channel now, if you'd like to check that out. So I'll turn it over to Jacob. Jacob, what did you think about it?
This movie was awesome. I knew the movie was going to be great when I saw the two most important words that you can have for a movie like this: Sam Raimi. As soon as I saw his name attached to this film, I knew this movie was going to be awesome. The first Doctor Strange is a movie I like, but it's never been one of my favorite MCU movies. I like the visual style, but the story, in my opinion, is a little all over the place on that one. This movie, the story is pretty simplistic considering it's a multiverse story, but the movie does just enough to get you invested to where I think even if you're new to the MCU, even though there's a lot of connections with stuff like previous MCU movies that Doctor Strange has been in and WandaVision, I think you can still follow the basic plot of this movie along fine because there's stuff involving the multiverse. Doctor Strange has to come in and fix it. There's other characters involved like Wanda and America Chavez, and some interesting cameos along the way. I will say to anyone who hadn't seen the movie yet and you want to, if you were one of those who were predicting so many cameos in this movie because it's a multiverse movie and you were blown away by No Way Home, you will probably be disappointed by this movie because, yes, there's cameos in this movie, and there is a really cool scene involving that. A lot of cameos, it'll probably not be the movie you were expecting because this is not a cameo-filled movie. It's a Doctor Strange sequel through and through with a continuation of Wanda's story that we saw post-WandaVision. And I think Sam Raimi did a great job. This is easily one of the most stylistically filled visual movies in the MCU. Like, you can feel the director's stamp throughout the course of the entire movie. The action sequences are so surreal that I loved every single frame of this movie. And I love that Sam Raimi snuck in some of the horror elements throughout the course of this movie. Those sequences honestly blew me away than some of your traditional action sequences you're used to seeing in the MCU. The performances are all great. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch is on top form once again as Doctor Strange. I love seeing the continuation of his character and some of the decisions that have affected him and some of the sacrifices and the consequences that he must make because of the events of this movie and movies of the past. I thought Rachel McAdams, considering I always forget that she's in the first movie because she's that throwaway of a character, I liked her a lot more in this movie. I'll dive more into that in the spoiler section, but I love what they do with her character, and she and Benedict have really good chemistry in this movie. I also really enjoyed Wanda. Elizabeth Olsen easily gives her best performance in this movie. There was directions with her character that caught me off guard when I saw this movie. That's all I'll say here in the spoiler-free section, but the movie did a great job of layering in the emotions of her character, and she is pretty much the emotional backbone driving the entire movie. I was very skeptical on the character America Chavez. Nothing. To me, it just felt like a teenage girl teaming up with Doctor Strange would feel out of place. But I warmed up to her character. Like, I really liked the dynamic the two have. It's almost like a father-daughter dynamic between the two, and I really enjoyed the mentorship that Strange brings in guiding her along the way. The visuals in this movie was outstanding. I love the score and this by Danny Elfman. All around, this was an amazing return to form from Sam Raimi, who hadn't directed a movie in like 9 years. And it's great seeing him return to a genre that people love them for with the Spider-Man movies. And this was an amazing win for the MCU, and I can't wait to see this movie many, many times more.
Yeah, I said in my review that this has been my favorite MCU thing in quite some time, and now having seen it a second time, my stance is solidified on that. I loved this movie as well. I actually like how there wasn't a ton of cameos, and there was I saw the review of this from Sean Chandler, who was one of my inspirations for starting this channel, and I love him, and I think that he's one of the best reviewers out there. I've actually done a couple podcasts with my friend Rachel and his wife Jennifer. She's a wonderful human being. So I just want to get that out of the way, and I just say I kind of disagree with the point that he made about how there was wasted potential with the multiverse here. I think there was just enough to where it's like teasing where they could and possibly will be going. But I think if they unkinked the hose on the multiverse in like the second time we've explored it after No Way Home, then the I think the freshness of it is going to go away a lot quicker. I hope that they kind of stagger it a little bit, so it keeps a bit of a mystery of, oh, what can we see? Which characters can we see? How deep does this rabbit hole go? I kind of like the conservative approach, but again, that's really just me.
Yeah, I one of my nitpicks with the movie was I felt like the movie could have explored the multiverse a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, I love what I saw. There was one shot involving many, many multiverses in that span in a couple of seconds. That blew my mind when I saw it, and I was hoping we got a little bit more of that type of multiverse jumping throughout the course of the story instead of the movie focusing on like one or two worlds then and there. I can't complain too much about it because I loved what I got. I love the direction of the story. I loved the progression of the characters and the overall style that Sam Raimi brought to this movie. But I can definitely see why people would be disappointed at the lack of, I guess, full blown multiverse stuff in this movie. That is a pretty valid criticism.
Yeah, again, I can see where people are coming from, but I think it's a bit of an overrated factor. Just again, that's just me. Um, I I loved how this remained mostly a Doctor Strange story. It's kind of what I wanted it to be, and that is what they did. And so I like that Raimi went in that direction. Speaking of Raimi, I love how near the knuckle he went with some of the violence in this movie. Literally, the first action scene is Doctor Strange, Wong, and America fighting off this big octopus creature. And I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I won't say what happens to the octopus, but we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But what happens to this octopus, I was like, what movie is this rated again? Because it was like, how did Kevin Feige allow this? This is insane. But I'm so glad that Feige kind of gave Sam Raimi the keys. They're like, Sam, here are the keys. It's all yours. I love that. I love the spirit of that.
Yeah, this movie is so off the rails considering it's a PG-13 movie. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that because Raimi has been known for getting away with pushing the PG-13 to the max. I mean, the final brawl between Spider-Man and Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man is absolutely brutal. Go rewatch that. Considering how lighthearted most of the movie is and campy the overall direction is, the final fight hits hard. Like you can feel every punch and blood sprueling out of Peter Parker's mouth during how hard some of these punches are. It is a brutal sequence, along with the the tentacle sequence in the surgeon room and Spider-Man 2, that's like straight out of Evil Dead right there. And then he made a movie called Drag Me to Hell, which is probably the most intense PG-13 rated horror film of all time. And I
Oh,
loved every second of that movie. So when Sam Raimi directs a PG-13 movie, he goes all at it. I'll even share this story. The theater I saw this in, there were some kids that were sitting in front of me. And some of the more intense moments in the movie, some of these kids were like, what just happened? And it was funny seeing some of the reactions on the big, especially in a big screen like when I saw it. It was awesome.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like God bless Raimi. He really went all out with this one as he usually does. So I think we've covered everything in terms of non-spoiler stuff. I don't think we're missing anything, Jacob, that you can remember.
I think we've covered the basics.
All right, I think it's time to go into spoilers. So this is your official spoiler warning. We are talking in depth about cameos, violent stuff, and big things that happen and big things that possibly will happen in the future. Spoiler warning. If you don't want to know, turn back now. The screen is going to go black. It will stay black for about 5 seconds. And then when it returns, Jacob and I are going to be in full spoiler mode. So the screen will go black now. All right, spoiler mode. Here we go. So in the first fight, like just Doctor Strange just straight up plucks the eye out of this octopus. And I was like, what in the world? What rating is that? It is insanity. Like with not even like a delicate thing. It's like a street lamp, like shunk.
Yep.
And you can literally hear like as the eye pops out. And I'm just like, well, that's some fresh childhood trauma. That's gonna
It
cost.
reminded me almost of this scene. I know this movie's not near as good, but when Tim Burton made Alice in Wonderland, there's a scene where a mouse takes the eyeball off of this big creature type thing. And be warned, that movie was rated PG. And
Yeah.
some of the violence in that movie was kind of crazy. Now, picture Sam Raimi doing a more intensified version of that scene with an octopus and this bigger street lamp type thing, and the movie's PG-13. It is crazy some of the ratings that some of these directors can get away with. Because I feel like with a lot of movies, I feel like the MPAA is too overly sensitive, and they rate movies based on like stupid petty reasons, like every other Disney Pixar movies rated PG. And I don't really get why they're PG, with the exception of like a couple of off-color jokes been in there, but then again, The Lion King is rated G, and that movie killed Mufasa. So I don't really understand the MPAA's terminology and that some of the ideas and stuff that goes in their system. Sometimes I don't know what. I just enjoy the movies for what it is. But that opening scene was very memorable for many, many awesome reasons. And Raimi just got more bonkers as the movie went along.
Yeah, that Lion King Stampede scene is terrifying, high key. I don't know if any of you out there remember that scene, but it scarred me as a child. That I can definitely say for sure. Like when Simba gets that 1,000 mile stare of, it was like, Simba, run away, run. But that's an unrelated thing for another time. But I I liked the character of America Chavez. I'm not going to try and pronounce her name here because I will mess it up. But I did like her. I thought she was really good, and I like the scene. I do like the transition where after the whole Camertage thing and Wanda just goes all nuts, like trying to kill people through peering through reflections, like puddles of water and mirrors, and I'm just like, sheesh, don't go in the bathroom in this place. Like, she'll try and strangle you through the bathroom mirror. It's like, this is craziness. And then she gets in that mirror, like in that trap, but she outsmarts it. And then and then Strange and her fall through the various, like the paint world and the Blade Runner world and the one where the dinosaurs live and the one that's all skulls and the underwater one. I'm just like, wait, did we just see Namor? And I'm just like, wow, that is crazy. And then they end up in world 732. I'm not sure
I
what
thought it was eight. I thought it was 838, if I'm not mistaken.
838. That's the one.
The main world is 616.
Yeah,
And I only knew that just from watching this movie. Like, I wouldn't have known that unless they explicitly brought it up during the Illuminati scene. But yeah, those were some crazy sequences. Like, first off, I was not aware that Wanda was going to go all villain mode in this movie. I think people had said she would becomes villainous in the comic books, and when she becomes a Scarlet Witch. But I remember when WandaVision ended. I guess we'll dive into spoilers on WandaVision. But when WandaVision ended, I was so frustrated a little bit by how that ended, because she kind of left Westview scot-free. Like, there was no consequences to her actions. And I felt like the movie kind of cheapened her character a little bit, even though I like the transition when she becomes a Scarlet Witch. I felt like the show kind of wasted that all around, and I didn't really care how it wrapped up. Here we see a very broken Wanda. Even though she let Vision go, she hasn't let her kids go. And she is a determined mother trying to get her kids back. And she's willing to possess different multiverse versions of her that get what she wants. She will like eliminate you left and right, torture you if you have to. She is full on psycho in this movie, and Elizabeth Olsen is phenomenal in this. This is easily the best I've seen her. And we get to that whole Comatage scene, and she gets trapped in that like glass mirror dimension thing, which was some crazy visuals right there. The part where America is trying to clean up some of the puddles because you'll see her reflection, that shot where you see Wanda's eyeball was probably the biggest jump scare of the whole movie for me. Like, at that point, I'm like, all right, they weren't kidding when they said this was going to be the MCU's first horror movie. And I am so glad they got Sam Raimi to helm this one, because there are just some amazing sequences in this movie.
Agreed. And then they end up in the 838 dimension. They got pizza in bowls, which, I mean, that looks delicious.
Yeah.
And it's sold by Bruce Campbell. I don't know if you noticed that, but
Yes.
Bruce Campbell was in there, and there's a pretty obvious nod to Evil Dead 2 with him in his right hand. I was like, definitely a Raimi film, all right. If Bruce is there, then Raimi's not far behind, or vice versa. And then, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but the car from Evil Dead is in that dimension where Doctor Strange used the Darkhold, and it's being sucked up into the ether. If you look, like, that Pontiac is there.
I didn't notice that.
It's twirling around. But if you do see it again, it is definitely there. But anyway, they end up meeting Chiwetel Ejiofor, who was the villain in the first one, and you think, oh, round two, but then he's like, my friend. You're like, oh, definitely opposite dimension. No, he was just waiting for Doctor Strange to show up because, well, Strange did some pretty bad things in this dimension. And then, well, we see Christine, and when she said, I am a senior fellow at the Baxter Foundation, I'm like, did you just say Baxter Foundation? And I'm like, okay, Fantastic Four are definitely confirmed at this point. And then when he's brought before the Illuminati, which actually, let me backtrack just a bit. I don't know if you noticed or not, but the guards in this place, the Illuminati's headquarters, those guys were Ultron. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but those designs were Ultron.
Yeah, I definitely picked that up because the designs were so familiar, and there was a lot of callbacks even to What If throughout Multiverse of Madness, because one of the episodes in What If was What If Ultron won, This, I think, is a different version of Ultron, considering what we saw in What If, where Ultron in that episode tried to take control of the entire multiverse. He goes full on crazy, kind of similar to Wanda in this movie. But it's cool seeing variations of the Ultron armor and design in different universes in the MCU.
Which can only mean since Tony Stark created Ultron, or in MCU canon, in the comics canon, he was created by Hank Pym. But that's another whole different thing. But does Tony Stark existed in this universe? So would that mean that he is dead or is he alive? It's an interesting thought, and I hope that they at least touch on it in the future. But anyway, burying the lead. Strange is brought before the Illuminati, which includes Chiwetel Ejiofor. I believe his name is Mordru. I hope
Mordo, I think.
Mordo, thank you. Captain Carter, a.k.a. Peggy Carter, but is Captain Britain, or the first Avenger. Monica Rambeau as Captain Marvel, not Carol Danvers. Black Bolt from the Inhumans, which that caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, they brought Black Bolt in here from that bad Inhuman show? Spoiler alert, that show is bad. I saw it. It's no bueno. But they gave him about as good a run in his brief scenes here than that entire show. But again, that's another story for another time. The cherry on top of the cake, though, John friggin' Krasinski as Reed Richards and Patrick Stewart as X-Men animated series Charles Xavier. Your mind was blown, wasn't it? Just like mine?
Yeah, I was. See, I didn't pick up on all the references. I had no idea who that Black Bolt character was. I didn't even know that was a character from the Inhumans show, which I never saw. I heard it was really bad, so I avoided it like the plague.
It's bad. It's really bad.
So I'm like, I don't know this character, but he seems okay. Yeah, it was cool seeing Captain Carter in this. That character was previously in What If. And it was cool seeing a live action version of the character played by Haley Atwell. It was cool seeing Captain Marvel, a different version of that. Actually, I think it's Maria Rambeau because that's the mother of Monica Rambeau, and Monica was in WandaVision. She was played by the actress who played her in Captain Marvel, which is Lashana Lynch, who was also recently in No Time to Die. And I didn't realize that was the same actress until I saw this movie. I'm like, oh, okay. Because she had the similar hairstyle that she had in No Time to Die. Yeah. Like, okay, that's pretty neat. I didn't, that's the first time I picked that up.
Lashana Lynch is a busy woman.
Yeah, she is. And I really liked her in this role. And John Krasinski as Reed Richards. I know people were fan casting that. When they make the Fantastic Four movie, he needs to be Reed Richards and Emily Blunt should be Sue Storm. And I'm like, okay, I'll see what happens. Then they actually showed him. I'm like, okay, this is actually really neat. I hope he's the main universe version of Reed Richards. I hope that's the one we'll get in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie coming down the line. But it's cool seeing him in this universe. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do in this upcoming movie. And then we get Charles Xavier. And I got a confession to make. I have not seen a single episode of the X-Men animated series. I know the theme song, but that's about it. And I picked up on the theme song when they integrated it into the score, when they introduced his character. But to me, it was just cool seeing Patrick Stewart again, because he's always been Charles Xavier to me, even in the original X-Men movies. And I think I respect even more that this is a different universe version of Professor X, Charles Xavier. It's not the one in the Fox movies. So I feel like if it was the one we saw in the Fox movies, it would undo some of the more poignant aspects of his character, especially what we saw in Logan. So it was cool that this is a different version of the character, still played by the awesome Patrick Stewart. And just seeing him in this movie and the Illuminati, it was an amazing touch.
Yeah, just a couple more thoughts on these two before we do move on. One of the most prevailing theories going on in the MCU right now is who buys Avengers Tower. And in my mind, it's either two choices: Norman Osborn or the Baxter Foundation. And with now the appearance of Reed Richards, I'm convinced that Avengers Tower is now the Baxter Building. Like, you can't change my mind on that.
Yeah, that's definitely a good theory. And those are background information I've never really picked up on. I think somebody mentioned that somebody bought the Avengers Tower. I think it was in Hawkeye, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm really intrigued at where that's going to go. And again, it makes me more excited to see the Fantastic Four movie and who they're going to cast to play these characters. I'm sure they're going to get John Krasinski now that, we saw him in this movie. We'll see about Emily Blunt. And of course, they have great chemistry already since we've seen them in The Quiet Place and they're married in real life. So that's like the perfect couple right there. And I've seen fan casts that Cillian Murphy should play Doctor Doom. And I think that'll be an
That
interesting
would be
choice.
perfect. That would be perfect right there, because I love me some Cillian Murphy, but he is just like, he's tailor made to be like either a dark hero or just like a pure villain, like Scarecrow in Batman Begins. He's Scarecrow. He's Thomas Shelby. Like, I love me some Cillian Murphy. So if they can secure him, oh, that's a nice gumbo. I would buy that for $1. But I saw on Twitter before this movie came out, the question pondered: if Patrick Stewart, and this is a kind of we already knew from his voice that he was going to be in it, but when you see Patrick Stewart as Professor X here, will it undo the ending of Logan for you? And I said at the time, I want to see what happens in the movie before I give an answer. Now that I've seen this movie twice, my answer is it doesn't affect my liking of Logan at all. I still love that movie. Professor X's death is still just incredibly affecting. And also keep in mind, with the multiverse, the X-Men universe and the MCU are two completely different universes. So if one dies in one universe, that doesn't necessarily mean that another dies in the universe. And of course, Professor X dies in this movie. There is that. But all I'm saying is that just because one dies in one doesn't mean another one dies in another. So my answer to that question is no, it doesn't affect me at all. Because of the multiverse, one happens in one universe and one thing is going on in another. There is a clear difference.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. It's interesting because these are like probably the biggest cameos in the entire movie. And I know before going into this movie, people were like jacked up, ready to see like crazy cameos like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. I know some people wanted to see Chris Evans, but as the Human Torch. I had seen rumors floating around of possibly Tom Cruise as Iron Man, since he was considered playing the character back in the day. That didn't happen. So people were hoping to see Nicolas Cage as the Ghost Rider, and so many crazy theories and predictions that people thought it was going to be like Avengers Endgame level cameos. And a part of me is interested in what would happen if we had got that version of the movie. But at the end of the day, I'm glad we didn't. I was one of the ones that wasn't predicting cameos in this movie. Heck, I wasn't even in the camp that was like, oh, I can't wait to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in No Way Home. I'm like, if they're in it, they're in it. And I was delighted when they were. That was a great experience. For me, with this movie, I was wanting to see the Doctor Strange sequel directed by Sam Raimi. And I'm glad that that was the focus on the movie at the end of the day. I feel like too much cameos might have been too much of a distraction in this case, and it might have taken away some of the characterizations, not just for Doctor Strange, but for Wanda as well. And I think too much might have derailed the movie. It would have been some cool fan service, but at what cost would it affect the story? So I'm glad we got the cool cameos we did with the Illuminati. I mean, the multiverse is still around. There's still ramifications of that after this movie, and some of the stuff we've already gotten, like in Loki and No Way Home. So there's some cool stuff you can still do in future projects. And I'm curious what's going to happen in those projects. I'm just glad we got some cameos in this movie, because imagine if we didn't get any cameos, the internet would lose their minds. They're like, why didn't we get our cameos? Let's riot to Marvel Studios. Kick Kevin Feige out of the office. I'm like, crazy fans sometimes, but I love the movie for what we got. It's so awesome.
Yeah, and I hope you all enjoyed seeing these people while they lasted, because Wanda just completely wrecks all of them.
Yeah, and that shocked me, because you see these characters like, okay, what are they going to bring to the story? Well, Wanda shows up and just decimates them all, and I was shocked by how she killed all these characters. And again, PG-13 Marvel movie. We got the Bolt guy got his brains fried pretty much, and the Reed Richards, while doing his stretchy powers, kind of gets like disintegrated and kind of gets turned into like
Play-Doh.
what?
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh, pretty much. I was about to say that. Just slipped my mind. And
Yeah.
then like she cuts Captain Carter in half, and we see a blood-soaked shield. I'm like, I hadn't seen something that brutal since what John Walker did to that one guy in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm like, whoa, that's like, wow, it's crazy. This is PG-13. There's some crazy deaths in this movie, and that was one of the standout moments of the entire film, just to see Wanda go completely off the rails, unhinged in this movie. I was chatting with another one of my YouTube friends the other day after I saw this movie, and he compared Wanda to the Terminator in that sequence.
Yeah, exactly.
And I completely agree after he made that comparison. Very much Terminator vibes throughout that entire sequence.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I don't know what's the crazier death. Black Bolt's death, where like he goes to like use his voice to like take her out, which we only see like him use his voice one time, and it's like, I'm sorry, but it's like a sonic boom is like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then you just see Doctor Strange in that universe wiped off the map, and you're just like, dang, like no wonder he doesn't speak. It makes all the sense in the world. And then when Reed Richards is like, yeah, with one word of his voice, he can like wipe you off the earth. And one is like, with what mouth? And then he's like, mm-hmm. And then like, mm-hmm. And then and like, what rating is this movie again? Because it's like, wow, it's just it's weirdly awesome. It's weirdly awesome. I love this. But anyway, and then I guess it would be remiss of us if we didn't do this without talking about Zombie Strange, which out of all of the variants of Strange, this one was my favorite.
Yes.
I didn't know what to anticipate with this, but seeing like the hand is like, like, I like this already. And sure enough, like the dude who did Evil Dead is like, yeah, I'm doing Zombie Strange. And I'm like, yeah, you do Zombie Strange. And honestly, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Cameos aside and then all of that, everything involving Zombie Strange. I want a Zombie Strange movie now.
I completely agree. This was my favorite part of the whole movie. And in the non-spoiler section, I had alluded to some kids in the theater going like, what is this? It happened during the Zombie Strange sequence. That sequence where Zombie Strange is going around trying to fight Wanda, but first the demons around them are trying to possess Zombie Strange. It's affecting the Zombie Strange in the other universe who's controlling the zombie. I was like, this is so intense. And some of the demon creatures reminded me of some of the creatures in the Evil Dead movies. It's that intense of a sequence. And I was just utterly speechless that Kevin Feige, who sometimes, he'll write his studio notes, sometimes, tell the directors what he wants to see in these movies. It blows my mind that Kevin Feige greenlit Sam Raimi, allowed him to do whatever he wanted with this movie. I'm sure there were some studio notes at some points in the movie, like maybe some of the cameos and some of the post-credit scenes, but when he let Sam Raimi go full Sam Raimi, it was an absolute joy to see unfold. And that sequence easily was the biggest standout in the entire movie. And I got a good laugh when Rachel McAdams' character, Christine, was facing off some of these demons, and she's like, go back to hell. And I'm like, is that like your drag me to hell nod right there?
Yeah, it's about as close as we're getting to one of those references. And I love the battle that regular Strange and Darkhold Strange have, where it's all musical
The
notes.
music notes, yes. That was insane. That was crazy. And I love how like the music of those notes was what was like kind of the score throughout that whole sequence. It was one of the most inventive uses of action and music that I've seen in a movie in quite a while. And that's definitely the campiest scene of the whole movie. So Sam Raimi has to inject some camp in his movies at some point, and that was definitely the one that did it for me. That was a trip for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've covered about all that we can cover when it comes to this, unless we're forgetting
I
something.
will say the most emotional aspect of the entire movie for me was when there's the standoff between main universe Wanda and the Wanda that she was cornering and possessing, and so they have this big face off, face to face. And Wanda, she's so desperate to live in a universe where she wants to see her kids again, but she realizes that there's already somebody that's taking care of them already. And so seeing the normal Wanda tell Scarlet Witch that, just know that your kids are okay. The emotion on her face, the Scarlet Witch, realizing the wrongs that she's done throughout the course of the movie, is some powerful acting. And I was very blown away by her performance, and then the lengths that she does at the end where she finally admits her defeat and her wrongs, and she destroys like the shrine and temple that was built for her. I took it she sacrificed herself at the end, but I know some people are like she'll be coming back, and Elizabeth Olsen is kind of like hinted she might be coming back. I mean, there's different universe versions of Wanda, which I guess we'll see that in the future, but I think the main Scarlet Witch, I took it she died at the end of that movie. And somebody had commented that Sam Raimi directed it pretty similarly to like the redemptive arc of Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. And I love that comparison in retrospect. It's great seeing Sam Raimi pay homage to his past films while still doing it in a really cool way in this movie.
Yeah, I love the end there where he's like, the river, drown it. And then Peter goes to do it and he's like, I'll do it. And you're just like, all right, Doc, you go. And it's like, that whole ending is just, that's just choice.
I will not die a monster.
Very, very, very good. But so here's the big $1 million question. Is this one of your favorite movies of the year? Is this top 5, top 3?
It's currently top 3. It's currently number 3 on my ranking. Number 2 is The Batman, and number 1 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Again, I have a couple nitpicks been in there. I'll admit I kind of wish they embraced the multiverse a little bit more, but I liked what we did get. The ending was a little abrupt, but it still didn't affect me too much because I love the shock of seeing the third eye on Doctor Strange's face at the end. I was shocked that that was the end of the movie. I kind of wish we had wanted more, but I'm excited to see more Doctor Strange going forward. Even though I don't fully get the post-credit scene, I don't know who this character is, but it's cool we got Charlize Theron in the MCU now. I'm excited to see where that goes and whatever multiverse adventures those two characters are going to have. I've seen different videos online from people who've read comics. Apparently, that's going to tie into like the Secret Invasion show or a possible third Doctor Strange movie. I don't know at this point, but I'm so excited to see the future of Doctor Strange in the MCU. Benedict Cumberbatch has been upping his game with each new appearance I've seen the character. So I thought he was fine in the first movie, but then Infinity War and Endgame, he was awesome. I enjoyed his small part in No Way Home, but this is the best I've seen him in Multiverse of Madness. And there's so many endless possibilities you could do with Doctor Strange going forward. If they can get Sam Raimi back to make another Doctor Strange movie, I would totally be down for that. I know I have read Sam Raimi had said that now that the multiverse is in full swing, he's open to finally making a Spider-Man 4. If he does that, I'll be a fully happy camper to see, I guess at this point, maybe the swan song for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man if he makes another Spider-Man movie. But there's just so much possibilities that Sam Raimi can do as a director now that, he's making more movies again because people thought he kind of went in retirement mode after Oz the Great and Powerful, which is a little overhated of a movie in my opinion. I've always liked that one. But now that, he made this movie, which is doing very well at the box office, made very impressive numbers. I am excited to see where the future is going to hold, and I am hoping for great things for Sam Raimi in the future.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And if he does do Spider-Man 4, I will be there day one with bells on. You can bet on that. One last note before we wrap things up. I was watching this movie the first time, and I was kind of noticing because there's been a bit of a subtle trend with phase 4 of the MCU. We live in a post-Thanos world, and I have a feeling that people are not really super keen on the idea that the Avengers not played a hand in, but even though they tried their hardest, they didn't prevent the whole snapping away half the universe thing. They brought everyone back, but at the same time, the scars are still fresh. We've seen it in Falcon and Winter Soldier, seen it in Hawkeye, we've seen it in No Way Home, and now we've seen touches of it in Multiverse of Madness. I think, and this is why I'm a little worried about Secret Invasion. I think that there's going to be a time where it's going to lead into a public distrust of the Avengers and a revolt against the Avengers. And that will play into the Secret Invasion type of thing. There will be things involving Skrulls, and people will see, what we were trying to tell you the whole time. Now, I'm completely spitballing, pulling this stream of consciousness. I guess this is wishful thinking. But I've noticed the trend of regular people just being where were the Avengers for us, when this was snapped away from me? A cataclysmic event like that just doesn't get thrown under the rug just because it was edited in post, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I don't know if I'm asking what you, Jacob, think about this, if that's a possibility of where they're going. Maybe it's too soon to tell. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just making this up as I go along, but I think it would be interesting if they went a whole public distrust, growing slowly over time of maybe the Avengers aren't as cracked up as they all meant to be. I mean, am I going off the reservation here?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Of course, I'm not as familiar with the comics as I've said time and time again, so I don't know where the direction of this is going to be. But I have noticed in almost every Phase 4 project, there's always some direct reference to Thanos and the snap and the blip and the return and some of the ramifications of that. And I do respect the touches of, normal everyday people coming back from the snap and seeing their lives gradually change. And some of those aspects, I think, really add a little sprinkle to like the overall trajectory of the MCU and to see where their characters are coming from. And it'll be interesting to see where that heads. There's always ramifications of something in these movies. I know the big New York battle, for instance, at the end of the first Avengers, definitely left ramifications for a lot of things. And I mean, I'm seeing that in the Daredevil show currently, in like the pocket universe that Netflix did for a while. I like seeing the exploration of that. And I like, and then they had the whole thing with the Vulture, that character in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where he was part of the cleanup crew, and he got screwed over, and he went to black market for like his big revenge scheme. So there's a lot you could do with your most everyday characters and where they fall into that trajectory. And I think with something that was bigger with Thanos and the end of the Infinity Saga, it'll be interesting what they do going forward. I think you're definitely on to something. I'm intrigued to see if that's the direction they go, especially when one of the upcoming shows is Secret Invasion, which looks like it'll be crazy. I'm excited to see that. So there's definitely a lot of excitement going forward. Phase 4 in general has been very, very interesting. I respect the variety of stuff we've been getting, where we got like the martial arts action with Shang-Chi and like the different Spider-Man we've seen in No Way Home, and Sam Raimi directing a horror movie with Multiverse of Madness. I know Eternal was pretty divisive, but I enjoyed seeing like the big grand cosmic scale of that movie. So there's some really cool stuff that we've gotten in phase 4, and I'm excited to see what we're going to get next.
Well, I know next up for the MCU is Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm very
Yeah.
excited for that, and we should do a deep dive like this for when that comes out. But we've got that doesn't come out till early July, so we do have some time in between. But what did you all think of Doctor Strange? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Favorite moments, like what do you think the MCU is going? Leave it all in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And that's it. That's all for us this week. Another episode in the books. Thank you all so much for watching. Jacob, it is a privilege as always. Please tell people where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and of course my 2 YouTube channels that I have going. My second channel, Storytime with Jacob, is where I do book reviews and read-alongs. I'm not doing as much content this week on that channel. I'm taking a slight hiatus on that channel because of some personal stuff I'm doing this week, but I will be back in full swing next week doing book reviews and read-alongs over there. I will say I have finished reading the first Goosebumps book, Welcome to Dead House, which was really fun revisiting. I did enjoy reading that. I'm such a fan of the Goosebumps series and was very nostalgic for them as a kid. And then over on my main channel, I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and other fun stuff along the way. I haven't done a review of Multiverse of Madness just yet. I will save that for my cinema roundup video that I'll do at the end of the month. But some videos you can currently check out on my channel. I recently did a big live stream collab review with fellow YouTuber Jacob Collins, where we talked about Scream 4. I did a celebrating Disney video where I covered Piglet's big movie, which was interesting to revisit all these years later. I did a vlog in the movies video where I react to the 80s comedy Adventures in Babysitting for the first time. That was a load of fun. I also got a review. What's interesting, the day I did my book review for Welcome to Dead House, the first Goosebumps book on my second channel, my review of the Goosebumps movie dropped the same day, the live action animated hybrid starring Jack Black, which I had never seen before. That movie was a mixed bag for me personally. And then other videos I got, Superhero Saturdays video on Spider-Man: Homecoming. I've recently reviewed the Alfred Hitchcock film Waltzes from Vienna, which was like a musical type film he made. That one is very bizarre, and I didn't really like it that much. And another video coming to the channel I got a review of the movie Radio Flyer, directed by Richard Donner, which stars a very young Elijah Wood, which that movie's not that bad. So some really exciting stuff on the channel, movie reviews, TV reviews. I got a review of Moon Knight coming on the channel this weekend I'm excited to dive into. So some really exciting stuff.
That all sounds amazing. Like, you are a busy man. I gotta say, like, wow, you got all bunch of stuff going on. That Waltzes in Vienna video sounds real interesting. I think I'm gonna have to check that out when we get done recording this. So both of his channels and his Twitter will be linked in the description below. I highly recommend you check them both out. Beg your pardon. As far as this channel goes, if you did like this video, please be sure to leave a like. These podcast episodes drop every Wednesday, so be on the lookout for that. And if you did like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. Something I've been working on and thinking about doing for quite some time is revving up my second channel as well, because there's something that I've wanted to do for quite some time, but it was like, should I do it? Should I not? But that is very much in the works, and I will have more information on that as I get closer to a certain date. But I'll let all of you know when that does happen. But as far as this channel goes, dropped a Twilight Zone vlog for the episode called The Invaders, which is currently on the channel. And then this week, since it is my birthday week, I'm going to be uploading a review for one of my favorite movies of all time, the underrated Disney classic Treasure Planet. So be on the lookout for that. And then, of course, I'll try and squeeze in a review for Firestarter on Peacock and in theaters. And then I will be starting up my Jurassic Park series in honor of Jurassic World Dominion. Thank God this series is over after this one, but it's going to be fun to talk about Jurassic Park, which is another one of my all-time favorites. So again, if you haven't subscribed, please do. But that is all for us. Thank you all so much, very, very much for watching. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam, and we will see you next week. Take care.